So where do you want to start with?
Okay.
RFK?
I'll start with RFK. Okay. Well, basically, I got most of my information from a podcast called Behind the Bastards. And it's they do good stuff on different people. But it's not a flattering podcast, unfortunately. So if you're a fan of them, you might not like
what
this.
What was the name of the podcast?
It's called Behind the Bastards. And it's pretty interesting. They do go after, like, a lot bastards. Like, there's some really horrible people. They do a good thing on Kissinger and just all these characters from recent history and, older history. And it's just, like, it really gets into the, like what made them into what they are. Not saying that. Now, RFK isn't a bastard, I don't think, but there's some problems. Now, first off, granted, his father was killed.
Well, he's the son of Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, and he was a Kennedy. They were all, they were a hyper-competitive family, a whole tribe where they all had to become president.
Well, yeah, and I think the Kennedys, too, that's something, I mean, I'm a huge... Yeah, obviously, our grandma was a huge Kennedy person. Yeah. It seems like that's one of the most tragic things in modern political theories. Is we didn't see a full JFK presidency, and obviously, even I was a huge JFK fan. I wasn't as familiar with Bobby Kennedy, and then I started learning about him. I was like, oh crap, that was like that almost seemed even more tragic because he seemed like he was really on speaking some good stuff.
And what do they say out of the Kennedys? They were saying that after John F. Kennedy died, the family still stuck together because Robert kind of rallied them all together and kind of focused them, so they were still the whole family group. It was a big, strong family group. But then when Robert Kennedy, they really didn't know what to do, and the mother really wasn't prepared to. Like, Robert Kennedy was gone, but he was the guy who brought them all together. So it was really tragic for the kids. And the mother was kind of pretty strict with the kids, and she got down on Robert. And Robert had like a good sense of like Dark Gallows kind of sense of humor. He was kind of a bastard, growing up. But he was she would like say stuff to him like like bad stuff you shouldn't say to a kid that would kind of mess him up.
Yeah, and I encourage anybody go look up Bobby Kennedy's speeches because he's got some really inspiring speeches on YouTube. Yeah, let's talk about his son, RFK.
Well, RFK now, Jr. RFK Jr. Now
I am an RFK. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I think I'm favorable to RFK, so I'm excited. I think this will make for a good conversation. Yeah. So what did you hear about RFK?
So he he was kind of a troublemaker growing up, and he had a darker sense of humor. And they sent him to like a private school, but even though he was kind of a troublemaker, but as he grew up, he did start to get into drugs and stuff. But he was a Kennedy too, so he was popular with the ladies. And it's funny, he did have a kind of a good, funny, gallows sense of humor. Like, one thing he did with him and like the other Kennedy kids, this was a funny thing. Like, somebody would drive by and they would make a banging noise, and one of them would fall down on the ground, and they'd go, oh my God, you killed another Kennedy. Like, and these people would get out of their cars and they would be like mortified because everybody knew the Kennedys.
So then we had the JF Kennedy Jr., right? John F. Kennedy's son died in that plane crash in the 90s.
Yeah, I wondered, they were probably all palling around together.
Well, he seemed like he was he was he was the inheritor of the Kennedy legacy. He seemed like if he stayed alive, he very well could have been the president, especially now knowing kind of where we are. But it seems obviously there's been some stuff in the media about the Kennedy family, like a lot of his family hating on him and whatever. But it does seem like RFK does have the Kennedy riz, as the kids would say, or he's got a little bit of the JFK and Bobby Kennedy, which is why he appeals to me. I think he's obviously running as an independent now. So he was a Democrat, now he's running as an independent. So I know you've heard some of his stuff on this podcast, but I kind of became a fan of RFK because he's done a lot of long form content. So there's lots of YouTube shows where he's speaking for an hour, 2 hours interrupted. And I think I would encourage too anyone that's the thing, the mainstream media. And I mean, obviously he's not a perfect human being. There's lots of stuff from his past and stuff that he said that's a little crazy. But I think the mainstream media is very good at like cherry picking kind of little things that seem a little radical. But when you listen to him actually in the long form, where he's just like talking for 2 or 3 hours, there's a lot of things. Right, he's not completely bad. He's not completely good. He's kind of in this gray area where a lot of stuff he says. He appeals to me because he rants against big pharma. He talks about ending the forever wars. He's also a big Bitcoin blockchain guy. So he's he kind of gets that whole thing. So there are some things that he appeals to me, and obviously his environmental background. He was an environmental lawyer with Riverkeeper, and he has done some stuff. So I think there's definitely some stuff there that he talked about. I think especially the forever war machine. Like I think that's something you don't hear anything. You don't hear the DNC saying anything. It's kind of like, oh, we're just going to fund these wars endlessly. And what's kind of some of the negative things they're talking about in the podcast?
Well, one of the things in his early life, and this comes up. Well, he was a falconer. He took up falconry as a kid. Now this explains a lot of things. So if you're a falconer, one thing you got to do is you got to supply it with live animals, dead animals. So, like some of his, this was a story they heard about. Like,
I didn't hear the story where he killed a bear or something in Central Park.
He did not kill it. This is the thing. He didn't kill it, but this is his backstory. So they would take their falcons out to like nab little animals and stuff. But he got used to taking his falcon to a where farmers would throw out their dead animals, which is pretty horrifying. And there would be rats, and it didn't bother him. They're saying this like when he was a teenager, and he would do that. That was one of his favorite places to go with his falcon. And there's a story of a guy who he would go to get drugs from him or buy drugs off him. He'd be there with his falcon, where all these rats and stuff. But being a falcon, it's also he got him used to having dead animals around, like to feed his falcon. We know people like whenever you eat reptile guy, you have to feed him live animals.
Yeah. You telling me that story kind of reminds me of Teddy Kennedy, because he was a big naturalist. So I read some books about or not Teddy Kennedy, Teddy Roosevelt. And he was like a big naturalist, and he would like do things like that, like hunt animals and then stuff them. So that kind of makes me remind me of that.
There's also a good story about where Robert F. Kennedy, a friend of the family, took him to, I think it was the Congo. Or something, on an expedition, and he was a wild kid, so he would eat rats, but he'd eat their eyeballs and stuff. So he was used to maybe eating what they call game or wild game or bush meat. So he would eat. So they may explain where at some point he got the brainworm, but that isn't what this is all about. But that explains the hawk. The hawk thing kind of explains a little bit about his.
I heard the brain stuff. We do have a comment from a viewer saying that RFK Jr. is a vote for Trump. He has 0 place in this election. So there's actually some news today that RFK Jr. Paul Slater commented, but we have some stories today coming out. And Nicole Shanahan, his VP, was on a podcast where she said that the RFK campaign is considering dropping out and joining forces with the Trump campaign because they think that if they stay in the race, it's going to actually take votes from Trump, and a vote for Kennedy will actually be a vote for the Harris campaign. So this is kind of fits into my political theory of what I think you see happening. Because here's some of the policies from RFK's website. So these are things that appeal to me. I don't know how they appeal to you, but his policies that he has on his website. He says, end the forever wars. Learn how Kennedy will unwind the military-industrial complex so we can invest resources in the middle class. He says, be the best environmental president in American history. End the chronic disease epidemic. Regenerate America's soils, farms, and food. Expand AmeriCorps. Bitcoin and blockchain are essential for human freedom. So defend labor, uplift workers. So he does have some policy. He has some policy things that, obviously, any candidate running for president that says I'm going to end the forever wars doesn't. That obviously the military-industrial complex doesn't like that type of position. That kind of my theory of what's happening now. We're in a moment of I think you're slowly seeing the polls shift in American politics. So I think we think of the left and the right. So the left you have Democrats, the right you have the Republicans. And I think Trump kind of set this, or at least my theory, off of when he ran in 2016. So if you think of like the Republican primary in 2016, when he got on stage and at this point Jeb Bush was like the anointed favorite. And he just came out on stage and said the wars in Afghanistan were a complete disaster. You could hear like
I did like that about him.
That's the thing, all the the curated audience that was there was like gasping because there was all these. You had so many people cheering like, yes, he said what we're all thinking.
He did. He did say that directly, and they were trying to glass over all that and act like it never happened.
So I think you had this moment of 2016 where Trump kind of, obviously, the Republican Party now, before 2016 it was like the Bush Party, right? Bush Cheney military-industrial complex. So once Trump obviously has come in and kind of taken over the right. So now the right is just Trump, right? It's just Trump. It's the radical right. And I think what you're seeing is he's pushed now Republicans, or like kind of the war hawk, the Cheneys, Bushes, push them over to the left to become Democrats. Where I think you're seeing the Democratic Party become the Washington establishment party, where it's still the Democrats, but also people like Mitt Romney, people like George Bush. I think if he ran today, George Bush would run as a Democrat. I think even at the DNC, the convention's going on right now. You're seeing all these protests, right? From the anti-Gaza, anti-war protesters that are like protesting and the radical left. So I don't know if Trump could appeal, because obviously I think his time is slowly expiring. But I can see a candidate in the future, kind of similar to what Trump did in 2016, of coming out and saying the war in Afghanistan was a disaster. You could have someone in the left almost take over the Democratic Party, or if a Republican, future, someone that Trump said, we need to end the war in Ukraine and end the war in Israel. That would appeal to a lot of far radical leftists, and I think you could actually see a moment where the radical left and the radical right, or the extremes, could then shift over to the Republican Party. Kind of have, because it seems like between Bernie, it just seems obviously there's a populist movement, but neither of those parties. So I think what you're seeing is the Republican Party slowly shifting to become kind of a populist party, and then the Democratic Party slowly becoming like the establishment party. And especially if Kennedy joins forces with Trump, I think that's going to help. Not help, but I think it's going to start shifting the poll. I think even back in the day, the parties switch and the polls swift. But I think that's kind of
because we were going back 50 years ago, or even longer. The Republican Party was a civil rights party at one point. Now they're the opposite of that.
So I think that happens in politics. I think that's what's happening. So I think that right now, as long as Trump's in the race, it's the party of Trump. I think post-Trump, I think the Republican Party is definitely it'll leave a vacuum where the Republican Party could remake itself into because they even think they're a Democratic Party. They're not a truly progressive party, right? They're and even one of the things when I was on the Kamala Harris website, you go to her website and it's just donate money. We're saving democracy, but she doesn't have any actual policies on her website. So it's something I'm concerned. I'm kind of in the bucket. I think where I'm not for Trump, I'm not for Kamala. I'm kind of in this. Or I think a lot of Americans are this third party kind of. I'm looking for something. Nothing really speaks to me.
There is the thought process of don't reveal your policies. Don't, because the minute you reveal your policies, then the opposition has something to clobber you over the head with.
Trump was running, right? Make America great again. Biden was running on I'm not Trump, and now Kamala's kind of swooped in and said I'm not Trump and I'm not Biden, right? I'm not a real white guy. I'm not Trump. I'm not Biden. But she hasn't really. What she's running for is still I'm not 100% sure.
She still has to. We're going to move face. It's going to be interesting to see. Like she's going to have to talk about her policies. She's going to have to interview, and who knows? Like somebody, she might have a moment where she's like you wacky white people, and then people are going to be like all offended or a little gaffe or who knows, whatever. We're like, I don't like the fact that she said that, or who knows.
That's the thing is, I don't think Biden dropping out and then Kamala coming in. I don't think any Trump voters said, I'm voting for Kamala now. I don't think anyone switched over. I think it's kind of coalesced. I think a lot of the base. I think there's a lot of excitement in the Democratic Party that wasn't there before. But Trump hasn't lost any of his supporters. Obviously, he's kind of stayed steady. So whether she can get it's a long race too. But it'll be interesting because Kamala was not popular when she ran in 20. So even the whole media narrative of the country's coalescing behind Kamala, it's like it seems like that on the media, but is that actually happening? I don't know, because she was not very. I don't even think she didn't get one delegate when she ran in 2020 and didn't poll above 5%. So the whole idea that it'll be interesting, especially with no primaries. There's no actual data on if the voters supported her.
So who knows what happened? But well, this is the other thing about RFK that they didn't. It bugs me that it really hasn't come up. It didn't come up on Joe Rogan. He was able to write 5 books after this. He became an anti-vaccine guy. So he even had I think it was called the Children's Health Defense Fund. He made. It was it was one of his organizations. Now basically they spread misinformation about vaccines, and we'll never know how much harm that's done in this country because it's kind of like, I don't take vaccine, like it's because of him. So who's that guy? Oh, I like his voice. Who's that handsome guy? Okay. So anyway, but this is the thing. In Samoa, he stuck his nose in somewhere he really shouldn't have, like a lot of Americans have done. Now in Samoa, somebody had an accident with a MMR vaccine. 2 nurses, they screwed up this vaccine and this MMR vaccine, and they ended up killing, like injuring or killing some kids. They messed up the vaccine. They put a hormone in it, and it killed a few kids. It was a bad accident, a bad nursing thing. But the Samoans are just like Americans in that they don't understand accidents. They just heard vaccine killing. Oh, vaccines have to be bad, so they started like an anti-measles vaccine in Samoa thing started. Now, there are a lot of sentiment. Samoa's a small country, like 200,000 people, I think. Now, this is the thing. RFK stuck his big fat nose in there, which he shouldn't have done. And he basically did. He started supporting the anti-vaxxers. Like, they got information from the Children's Health Foundation, and he started helping with them. He even went over there and he talked to the prime minister of Samoa, and he talked him into getting rid of the MMR vaccine. And he basically went to a small. And Americans have done this before. Like liberal Americans have gone to third world countries with their prejudices and ideas and inserted them into third world countries where they become disasters. But anyway, so he did help. Who knows how much help the Samoans from not putting forth this vaccine, ending the vaccine. So, guess what happened? In a couple years, kids started dying. They had a measles outbreak, and I guess there's like 4,000 people got it, and like 83 children died because they didn't have the vaccine. And this was in part due to RFK's intervening, and the fact that they don't talk about it much here in the press, and it is annoying. And this was known about. This is public knowledge, and he's kind of denied it and downplayed it, like his interaction. But it's something that happened. So that's an RFK goof him up.
I mean, I've heard of. Yeah, I know. I've heard. And I don't know enough about his positions on that autism's causing, or vaccines cause autism. I mean, every time I kind of listen to him speak, he does cite a lot of like scientific research papers and stuff. I don't know the kind of the nuance of that, but I think like one of his policies that he has on his website says end the chronic disease epidemic. So he says the current generation is the sickest in American history. When John F. Kennedy was president, 6% of American kids had chronic health conditions. Today, it's 60%. So one reason that RFK appeals to me is he talks about he rants against big pharma and saying that we need to. It's something the mainstream doesn't talk about. I think, most of like CNN and the mainstream media is like a lot of the advertising comes from pharmaceutical companies. So he talks about how America's catastrophic health, and I think it's bankrupting our country. So approximately 90% of U.S. healthcare costs are for people with chronic and mental health conditions. And I think, he says as president, he's going to uproot the influence of big pharma and Wall Street firms that are heavily invested in medical industry, transition from a toxic, degenerative industrial food system, and then start. So I think that's something I don't think you hear any candidates talk about. Is like America really is in a public health crisis of people. I mean, I was just heard a podcast or a clip the other day of just a scientist talking about across the board everything from obesity to cancer, child health, sperm count levels, like everything. America is so sick. I think just knowing how kind of twisted our whole medical system is, right? They leave our insurance. Our country does need some sort of radical change into healthcare. I mean, I think preventative health, but also, I know one thing I'm concerned about is just our food system and the whole, the amount of chemicals and unnatural things that are in our food system. Are concerning. And Kamala and Trump don't ever really talk about our food system or health, but I think big pharma is kind of a Wall Street, which is, I think, again, coming to my theory of I think you could have a populist movement of a candidate. If a candidate really started pounding the table for revamping our healthcare system, I think especially with the whole Obamacare thing that happened earlier, I think that is a thing that could have some sort of populist momentum because Americans are sick and
I know they did recently. There's a whole 10 different drugs that they got to price fix on recently. I heard the Biden administration recently did that. Like they did with insulin, but then there were some other drugs.
There's things. There's so many. The drug companies are. Medicine is so expensive, and it's just it's very concerning. I don't know how. I don't even know if any president, whether it's RFK or Trump or Biden or Kamala, could actually do anything about it because it's so. It's very much like the military-industrial complex of big pharma. It's so intertwined. Obviously, it's a profit industry, right? Like sick people, healthy people don't make any money for pharmaceutical companies if people are healthy. So it just kind of feels like the whole system is set up to make people sick and keep people sick. Because chronically ill people, you can make profits off of.
Perhaps,
any other loopy things you want to mention about RFK?
No. I'm trying to think if I have any. The hawk thing was interesting. Yeah, he was a guy like you go over to his house and like not popular with the ladies. You open up, there's a dead animal in there. So well, there was another thing. He was a Kennedy, so he grew up when he was young. He was able to get women very easily. But
and his father died. His father was shot while he was a teenager. So I mean, that's pretty dramatic. Especially, but I think America. I mean, the Kennedys, JFK, and Bobby Kennedy. Like you listen to their speeches, and they're so inspiring. So I really feel like America. I mean, it's one of the biggest what ifs in American history, right? What if JFK doesn't get shot? What if Robbie Kennedy becomes president because he was on the fast track to becoming president? A lot of his speeches, I wasn't really aware. I mean, JFK gets he's kind of the more famous of the brothers, but a lot of the Bobby Kennedy speeches he's very inspiring. It makes you really. Makes me sad. It's like, how would our country, what trajectory would have gone if he had become president?
Like, how would we feel if, like, Obama was shot and then somebody else we really were into just got shot too? You know?
Well, that's the thing is, like, even if, I mean, Obama too, when he first became president, right, he had that hope and change thing. If he had been shot, say a year or two into his presidency, like, the mythology would have been out. And so, like, would JFK just have turned into kind of like an Obama light of, like, this really inspirational candidate, but then kind of got corrupted and didn't really do much?
I would hope not. He
got cut short, right? So now it's the big what if. It's not, you have no 8 years to say his term. But
that's one reason I was very glad that Trump did not get shot. I've had this discussion. I know some people really hated him, and they were like,
I think that's that. I was thinking about that the other day of how scary that. I mean, I don't think we want any sort of political violence in America. And especially, I was thinking too, like, okay, well, if Trump gets shot, and then America obviously would fall into some sort of really, really deep something. I don't think we would ever have seen, like really seen, but some sort of civil unrest, right? But my thing was like, does China then decide that that's their time to take Taiwan? Because if I'm China, right, and if Trump was just shot and America falls into civil distress, if I want Taiwan, that seems like a pretty good time to go take it. So it's kind of even the Middle East. What happens in the Middle East? Is Iraq? Does Iran? So it's just like that little moment, that inch. Just thinking the knockoff effects of not only internally the divisiveness and what our country would have fallen to, but also the outside actors that are looking, that are vultures circling around looking for a time to sprint. It makes me scary because they do not have our best interest out. So if they see America in a position of weakness like that, a lot of the knockoff effects that we missed narrowly.
I've been watching this show called House of the Dragon. I don't know if you watch it, and it's a very interesting. It gets into there's a war between these in the series that it's building up for, and it's building up, and there's a scene in there where like we can tell it's like the start. It's going to be the start of a really bad war where they're like, there's actually a couple scenes like that where it's like something violent's going to happen. You're like, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And you're like, no, please don't. And then boom, it happens, and you can see the one guy. Because this one guy, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the guy's trying to control something, and boom, it basically kills a member of the other family, and you can just tell he's like, oh no, this horrible action is just going to cause all these other horrible actions in the future. And it just goes into that like it's like
that's the thing, the wormholes you could go on just of that one. And just thinking our whole reality is shaped on 1 inch another direction, the whole reality changes in a blink.